So we should be live.
We might be live. If we are live, let us know in the chat. I am Brandon, your author for the evening. That is Adam, your publicist for the evening.
Yep, that's me.
Adam's going to be hanging out on stream with us for 15 minutes or so. No,
for about an hour.
Hour or so,
Yeah.
That's right. And then Isaac will probably be joining us.
That's the current plan.
Yeah. So, yay. Welcome to the stream, everyone. Glad to see you all. I hope everyone is weathering the pandemic quite well. We had it in my household week ago. We got out of quarantine on Monday, yesterday. So yeah, but it was very mild symptoms for the 3 people who tested positive in our household.
So assuming Omicron, I imagine then.
Mm-hmm. Yep. So.
To Swampfish, who says I'm the goat. Thank you. I don't know if that means I look like a goat or...
You're the greatest of all time.
the greatest Adam that works at Dragonsteel.
I'll
take it.
We are taking questions mostly from the Reddit thread this time, though Kellen will be perusing your comments in the chat and perhaps occasionally pulling one out and sending it to Adam. So we will try not to ignore you entirely, chat, but... We like the Reddit thread method. You can hop over there still and upvote things, can they?
Yep.
And whatnot, because it just is easier for Adam to track which question
it's
we're
so
on.
Much easier, yeah.
The chat is fast and furious.
And that way I get to actually ask what people want to get answers to, which is very convenient for me.
Yes. So you don't get in trouble for ignoring things. Yeah.
Yes. Though if I can, I will ignore all of you.
I am signing the Elantris Leatherbound this week. Theoretically, we're going to finish up this batch tonight. Is that the plan?
Yeah, we're in trouble if you don't.
Okay. So.
To put it bluntly.
So we'll be signing that. And Adam's going to be throwing questions at me, and I'm just going to be answering them.
Yep. The first one is from... sorry, that scrolled down a little bit. From Very Nice Name 16. They say, you write a lot of immortals in your books. How do you think about people living on large time frames like that, and how that affects the way they think and act compared to ordinary people, and also say 10,000-year-old compared to a 2,000-year-old to a 300-year-old?
Yeah. So this is actually something I've dedicated a lot of thought to. I think fantasy and science fiction, one of the things it does well is explore human experiences that aren't possible in contemporary or realistic fiction, right? And so looking at, there are a lot of people out there searching for the key to human immortality. And what would it be like? How would we deal with it? These are questions that are interesting to me. And doing a story on a 10,000-year time scale lets me play around with that. I will say that various people you've met are immortal. Some are not. Some are, it's more time dilation shenanigans than it is extended lifespan. But regardless, how do I approach this? By gut and instinct, just trying different things out. No human being's experience is identical to another human being's experience, and so I figure no immortal's experience will be identical to other immortals' experiences, and so I can have lots of different responses. I can base it partially on the magic system and how they were made immortal, and then that lets me play with different experiences, like the things the heralds are going through, Hoyd hasn't gone through, right? Some of the sort of degradation of what's happening with their souls is unique, not wholly unique, but individual to the experiences they're having. And I play with those differently than I play with someone who's been elevated to holding near infinite power in one of the shards and how their experience goes. And then you've got just, random people who have run across things that have changed their experiences in different ways, and I will approach them in a different way. And I can't really say how exactly I'm going to do this with everybody. It's just going to be different for each character in each situation. That's a very long non-answer. I thought about it a lot. I don't have answers yet. You'll see them in the books when I write them.
Oh, the next one comes through Kellen already. She's doing her job.
Wow.
From Travis Martin. Their question is, how difficult is it as an author to kill off a main character? How do you deal with attachment to characters as a writer?
So this is less difficult for me than it is for a lot of writers because I am such a heavy outliner. And so it doesn't take me by surprise. Usually it is planned out and plotted out. And this allows me to pull the Band-Aid off slowly, which in this instance actually works better. I know you normally want to pull it off fast, but in this case, I can work on the outline. I can say, this would be the right thing to do according to how I feel right now. I'm going to explore this in the book, and then I can see where it goes in actually writing the story. And there are times where I've backed off and said, no, that's not the right thing. There are times where in writing the story, I've, reworked the outline because I realized that a character death was appropriate and things like this. And it gives me a lot of time to get used to the idea, even during revisions. Right? Like that is more time to get used to it. I have time to back out and change. And so it doesn't hit me in the same way it hits you. And I recognize that. I try not to be callous in that regard. I do know how it feels to have characters ripped away from you. And the closest I can experience that with things I've worked on is The Wheel of Time, where after I was done with my 3 books, that was the end. Like with even something that mitigates other character deaths, I know that if I really wanted to, I can always go back and write a story from before the character died, right? I can write a flashback sequence. I can spend more time with that character if I want to, except The Wheel of Time, where when I was done, I was done. And that one hit a little harder because there was going to be no more opportunities. Were going to be no more opportunities for me to write about from those characters' eyes. But I do understand how this feels from other pieces of media, and I try to be cognizant and aware of it. But for me, it's not as hard as you think because I have so much time to prepare, often years to prepare.
This next question from Abandon the King says, is the current state of the Cosmere still true to your original vision, or has it deviated much from those early development days?
Ooh, depends on what you mean. For instance, I would have guessed that I would have been back to Elantris sooner than I'm getting back to Elantris if you would have asked me in 2006 when I was really building the Cosmere out, 2005. Whenever it was, let's see. No, it's more like 2004 and 5. When I was really building it out, I would have said, oh yeah, I'll be back to Elantris, and I don't know when I'll be back to Stormlight. And back then, I thought I would be getting to Dragonsteel pretty soon, actually. I would have imagined Dragonsteel was going to happen, and then Elantris was going to happen, and then Stormlight was going to happen. This is pre-Wheel of Time, pre-me figuring out how to fix Stormlight, and all of that. And Stormlight coming together and working in 2009 from the version that I wrote in 2002 that didn't work is a big upheaval for doing the Cosmere because, that's when Bridge 4 moved out of Dragonsteel and into Stormlight. And Dalinar had already jumped ship, and Stormlight then became the flagship Cosmere epic, I should say, replacing Dragonsteel, which does change how I view things quite a bit. Dragonsteel is still going to be there, but it has become much more Hoid's story than anyone else's. And some of the characters in Dragonsteel Prime may not even show up in it anymore because other incarnations of them have made it into other books. So there is that. The general scope and idea, though, right? Like, that hasn't changed. The general idea of telling this interconnected web of epic fantasy stories that started moving together and coming together, that's all still working. The general plan for what the backstory of the Cosmere is has remained the same and is working. So that's the big change, I would say. And the Elantris fans are probably in the chat going, "Oh, I will get to you. I will." But Stormlight working has changed some things around. Anything else? I don't know. I had to someday get out that I've got from 2005 a written out outline of the Cosmere that my wife saved after I wrote it out and then digitized it. She saved the actual piece of paper. We were at a family reunion when I was working on it, because this is what I do when, you take away my computer, then I find paper. So she has that somewhere, and we should get that out and show it to you guys. It's I think it's 36 books is the outline that I came up with back then. And, Alloy of Law and Era, what became Era 2 of Mistborn, was not in that outline. So and there's some things that are in there and aren't in there.
This next question comes from the chat, from Joshua Gooch. They say, what is something that writing the Wheel of Time taught you that you carried over to the Cosmere?
So Wheel of Time forced me to learn something that I had failed at doing in Way of Kings Prime, which is juggling a large cast and making each of their arcs satisfying. And I couldn't afford to be bad at juggling a large cast. There were some 2,200 named characters when the Wheel of Time was handed to me, and a lot of main characters and secondary characters who needed character arc resolutions in those 3 books that I did. And I couldn't afford to be bad at that anymore. And so I needed to find a way to be good at it. And I often talk about this whole, I had to do a lot of weight training in those months leading up to finishing those books. And they made me very good at approaching the same thing in Stormlight. So that's the main one, is how to handle a large cast.
The next question comes from Stormy QJ. They say, if the roles were reversed, would you feel comfortable having Robert Jordan write the remainder of the Cosmere?
Oh, sure. He'd do a great job. I've never been asked that before. But, that's a very hard thing to wrap my mind around, right? But, yeah.
The next question might be a spoiler question, so I'm going to let you decide to answer it or not.
Okay.
But it is one of the more upvoted ones. So
okay.
They say, where was Ivory the night Shalon stole the Soulcaster?
Rafa, yeah.
I figured that would be the case.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Oh, Evgeny, why do you think some celebrities, authors specifically, become known by either their first name, you for example, last name, Tolkien, or both, Neil Gaiman or George Martin? Why do some earn abominable nicknames like Brando Sando, even if they are affectionately given by their fando?
I think that the affectionate nicknames that I have gotten stem from the fact that my career from the get-go has involved lots of personal communication to the fans and things like this. And they know it doesn't bother me. And so yeah, I think that that is certainly part of it. This is an excellent question, Evgeny. What else? Well, there's definitely that. I mean, it depends on how long your name is, right? And how kind of, shall I say, ordinary your name is. Like George is a little bit more common than Brandon, at least once upon a time. Who knows if any more, but And I think people calling him, plus there were multiple other, there's Gordy Dixon, Gordon R. Dixon. There's lots of names that sound similar in the community. That's less a thing for the fans, but there, when George was getting big, I think there were several other Georges or G-sounding names, and so calling him George Martin in order to, to differentiate, maybe. I mean, most everyone I know in the industry just calls him George now, because if you say George, everyone knows there is one George now. But I'm kind of looking earlier in his career. Plus, the RR is so iconic and so funny that he has the double R middle name that it just, how can you not?
I've actually never looked it up. Is that just a pen name? Does he actually have two? Okay.
Yeah, it's legit. And if I had two R middle names, I would be using it, right? Isaac always joked about doing a comic about some guy who was working to earn his second R, a fantasy author who had one R in the middle, and he was pretending it was like some medal of honor that you pass a certain level of fame and notoriety, and they bestow upon you like knighting your second R. And I think that is really amusing. We should do that. We should come up with some award. Like if you win like this or whatever, it's you get knighted and you can call yourself RR. Someone ought to do that. That's instead of being Sir or Dame, you get to be, Brandon R.R. Sanderson or Jancy R.R. Patterson.
Radical Bacon says Brando Rando Rondo Sando.
Ooh,
should be your name.
Not bad. I think there's also a certain level of distinguishment. Like Professor Tolkien was he was a professor. He was a capital P professor, right? Like I'm a professor, but I am a professor in that I teach a class about the thing I do. And he, published legit scholarly works and all of this stuff. It's just, it feels right to call him Professor Tolkien, and Tolkien is such an interesting last name, right?
You don't meet too many Tolkiens.
Yeah, and that he didn't go by his pen name, he didn't use his first name. So I think you can also influence this, right? Like if I had gone by as B.W. Sanderson or something like that, then people would call me Sanderson, right? Instead of Brando. But I don't know. I think a lot of things play into this. I think it's a fun question to consider. But I wonder if, if I'm in my 80s and writing, will people instead be referring to me in a different way? Or things like that. So, I don't know.
That will be fun to watch. Potato says, what kind of attractions would you put in a Cosmere-themed amusement park? And adjacent to that, what attractions would be in an in-universe Cosmere amusement park?
Oh, man. You are hitting me with the hard ones today. What would we do? I don't know. Could you, I would, if I were going to come up with an in-universe one, I would try to build it in a modern or future era where you can use the powers in interesting ways, right? Like a roller coaster that goes in and out of speed bubbles could be interesting, in that it is a dimension of experience that we can't have in our world, and so I would write those kinds of things in so that the reading about it would be more interesting, right? That's how I approach these things. The magic system and the world building would be relevant to how the theme park runs. If I were going to build one and put things in it, what kind of rides would I put in? I don't know. A ride where at every stop wit insults you. That would be pretty good, right? What else? What
I
else?
mean,
would
any
there
roller
be?
coaster would work, with
Yeah.
mimicking flying, kind of.
Yes,
That's a prevalent theme.
What it feels like to be to steel push off of a building. So those big drop you things. I actually went on a few of those to be like, all right, what's it feel like to jump off a building? I should go bungee jumping to get a better experience for that. I've never gotten around to that, but some of those amusement park rides where they just take you up and then just drop you, were the closest I could get when I was doing back in 2005 or whatever research for actual Mistborn. So,
Jeremy Patterson says ring toss for your own spren.
ring toss for your own spren.
I like that carnival game for
Yeah.
Cosmere. Anyway, SMG 9000 says, I really enjoyed Arcanum Unbounded. Do you see yourself releasing a collection of short stories like that again? And have other authors approached you about writing a short story in the Cosmere? What other author would you enjoy seeing tackle a story in the Cosmere and why?
So I think an Arcanum Unbounded 2 is someday inevitable, but it depends on how many novellas I get around to writing, or short pieces. I think it is inevitable. We already have one in Dawnshard that would go in it, and we will have Horneater in a year or two, and maybe someday we will have the Lopen short story that could then, fit in there. So, but I have to, for me to really want to do Arcanum Unbounded, I have to write some stories on other planets and things like that, like finish up the Six of the Dusk sequel, and stuff like that.
Yeah, you teased that one a little too hard.
Yeah,
on that chapter.
There.
Where was that? What event was that?
That would have been the Oathbringer release, I think.
Yeah, that's
the Rhythm of War release. I mean.
Yeah, I think you're right.
But yeah, so I have to just get around to finishing those. On the second question, there are people who are interested. Right now, the only person that is authorized to write in the Cosmere except me is Isaac. And he is working away on his first stab at a Cosmere story. I don't know what the length. We had talked about a novella. It seems like it's longer, right, Kara?
It is.
Yeah. And
Read
so
it to me this weekend. It's really fun.
he read the whole thing to you?
Not the whole thing.
Oh,
but
you
a
read-
couple chapters when
Cap-
we're in the car.
Okay. So yeah. So he is working away at that. And I haven't read any of it yet. I've just helped him outline and things like that. So, if that works, potentially there is a chance for more. The Skyward novellas have been very well received, and that makes me excited for the potential. I could see a short fiction collection that is just lots of different Cosmere things that different friends of mine have written, but we'll see. I have no immediate plans. The only immediate plan for this is Isaac working on his story and me working on Horneater.
And I saw someone in the chat mention they were experiencing some buffing on the video. Let us know how the stream quality is for you.
Buffering?
Yes, buffering. I can talk sometimes.
Yes.
Let us know how it's going for you guys, and I guess let us know if we need to do something on our end. I don't know what that would be.
Yes.
But, at least we would know it was bad.
We have to open up the tube.
Yes, we have to turn
from
the
our
faucet.
house. Yes, we have to turn the dial so the internet tube
So it
from
can
our
buff.
house lets out more stream of internet. That's how it works.
That's what I've been told.
Yeah.
Okay, so I think it was just that one person. Okay. Flag Randall? I have no idea. Will Stormlight 5 feel like the end of a series, or will it be more open-ended so that the next 5 books finish the story?
It's going to be somewhere in between those two. So it's it will be a climactic book, and should be paced differently than any other Stormlight book. Right now, I'm not sure how much I want to say to spoil, but just the pacing is going to be different. I'm going to be treating it different in how I write and build it just from a structural level. But it should feel like a climactic book, but it's not the end. It's not as much an ending as Stormlight or as Mistborn Era 1 was. And even Mistborn Era 1 left a big door open for future eras. And it's not that ending, that decisive. Decisive is the wrong term. Like when I release book 6, it will be book 6 of the Stormlight Archive, right? And yes, there will be a change in focus, but if you hadn't known that, it would feel like a time jump and a little bit of a changeover, but you wouldn't go into it going like, oh, this reads like a completely different series, right? Mm-hmm. I mean, yes, Lift is going to be a bigger character, and the Heralds are going to be bigger characters. And Renarin and Jasna will be bigger characters. But Renarin and Jasna are already fairly decent, prominent characters in the Stormlight Archive, so it's not going to be out of nowhere, if that makes sense. So I'll just have to let you guys see what you think, but that's what my impression of it is.
Ben Olson, friend of the program.
Oh, that Ben.
Yes.
The how's that Ben?
Yes.
Of Ben's?
Yes.
Uh-huh.
He says, turned on the stream right as Brandon and Adam tried to explain the internet, and now I regret my life choices.
Yes. I know everything I know about the internet I learned from Ben.
Seems like he's a great teacher. You know so much about it.
Yeah. Lots of tubes, lots of dials, and there's somebody back there with a big switchboard. And anytime you get an email, they have to be like, all right, who do I send this to? All right, let's look them up, find out their actual physical address so that the email can get to them. That all gets shortcutted, which is really nice these days.
Sam Flynn from the chat wants to know if you think Stormlight 5, or how long you think it will be, or if you think it will be of similar length to the
length to the others. I've said that every time. We'll see. But that's my expectation. Okay. Is similar length to the other ones. Every time I've said, I think this one will be shorter, and then it isn't, so I'm not going to say that this time, so you guys can't gotcha me. But it's possible it'll be shorter. Who knows?
Loose there in Teletubby says, you should end your next book with, how's that been?
How's that been? Instead of the end. That becomes the
de facto end of anything you do.
Yep.
Okay. I'm not going to read that name because I don't know how they... NC23 Nick, I guess. Hey, Brendan, I hope you had a great holiday.
Holiday? There was a holiday?
A month ago, I guess.
Oh, there was like was there a long weekend recently?
I don't know.
Oh, are they talking about Lunar New Year? Because I did not get my duck gook, and I talked to Emily about, I had totally forgotten that we need duck gook today. And I'm like, oh no, how are we going to get our duck gook? So we're going to go try to make duck gook over the weekend instead. I'm pronouncing duck wrong, Koreans. I apologize. That's one I always had trouble with, is the double D. But my wife has never actually had it. And I was like, hey, it's Lunar New Year, Em. We should have duck gook. She's like, how do we get duck gook? And I'm like, I have no idea. We'll figure it out. So, for those who don't know, it's a tradition in Korea on Solal, which is Lunar New Year, to eat this special dish, and that is when everybody ages a year, because they do some interesting things with birthdays and aging in Korea, where everyone knows what their birthday is, right? But you're kind of lumped into your class by which year you're born. And it can be kind of funny because if you're born early January and then Solal happens, everyone kind of ages on Solal. When you say your age, you're usually using that one. I don't know. It gets sticky. Koreans who are watching modern trends can tell me, because I know there's a clash between what was done traditionally and what's done modernly. People in the chat might be able to say, Brandon, that's just how it was 20 years ago, and it's changing. But for a while, when you were born, you were one, because they counted birth as 1 instead of 0. And then on Solal, you'd age. So you'd be 2 years old in Korea, and you'd be 2 weeks old in America. And this adds some oddities to figuring out ages and things like that. And traditionally, when you eat your dakguk, that's when you age a year. And there are, of course, incessant dad jokes about, I'm going to have 2 bowls. Oh, no, I'm a year older now. I aged twice. Or, I'm skipping my bowl this year because I don't want to be 40. Things like that are very, very tired and worn jokes, but somehow still funny.
Going back to the previous statement, and I'm going to butcher your name. Sorry, it looks Portuguese. João Araujo says, should probably add it to your gravestone too. Brandon Sanderson, husband, father, writer. How's that been? I thought that was funny, so I wanted to share.
That's not bad. Yeah. No, it should be Brando R.R. Sando on that gravestone by today's conversation.
Yes. Someone just asked, how do you know so much about Korean culture?
I lived in Korea for 2 years as a missionary for the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints.
Okay, so now we're going to go back to NC23 Nick's question. They say, is there a character in either the Stormlight or Mistborn series that you feel you underdeveloped and wished you had spent more time on?
Stormlight or Mistborn, underdeveloped and wished I'd spent more time on? Well, usually when I run into situations like this, I just write a story about them. Are there characters I wish I had time to write more stories about? Yes. I wish, for instance, I had time to write more stories about all of Bridge 4. Right? Like Bridge 4, there are plenty of characters in Bridge 4 that you just barely even get their names, right? Because there's so many people to track. And, there's, of course, Kaladin and then the core team. But I would have liked to have been able to spend more time, and maybe someday I will, fleshing out more of those characters. So there's that. I think Doxing could have used a little bit more time in Mistborn, maybe. But, again, that's something I would do with a short story. I don't think, though there are things I might change going back, I don't think expanding anyone's story is something that I would do if I were to rewrite the books. That's my instinct.
I've seen a few people in the chat trying to get hashtag, how's that been, going. I find it funny. Okay. Asmodeus9 says, so far in the Cosmere, we have seen different kinds of stories that fit a wide variety of genres across many different worlds. Was the Cosmere intentionally built specifically to be this open-ended sandbox that you can play in, or is that something that happened more over time as you came up with more and more stories that you might be able to tell in there?
It's a little of both. I always have, you have to go back to the fact that before I published, I wrote these 13 novels and got very experienced at the idea of telling new worlds and new stories, and that's part of what excites me. And I built the Cosmere specifically to be able to tell different kinds of stories. Now, as I've matured as an author, I think there are stories that have occurred to me to tell that may not have occurred to me when I was younger, and I wouldn't have realized that I would want the space to tell. But I always was aware that this is something that I like to do, and that the structure I built should allow me that flexibility and freedom. And I also am very aware, and have been from the beginning, that I didn't want to tell the same story over and over. In fact, once I wrote Dragonsteel, which was we'll release Dragonsteel Prime probably for the Words of Radiance Kickstarter. You guys will be able to read it. And it has more of a classic fantasy, farm boy goes on an adventure story. than I've generally done in my other books. And I wrote that, and the Cosmere knots out there, who or the lore keepers, or the arcanists, whatever you want to call yourselves, who watch the things I've said, know that the only book I abandoned out of those 13 was book number 9, which was the book I started right after I wrote Dragonsteel. And I found myself writing kind of the same story again. Another similar feel, similar vibe of this kind of more classic fantasy tropes. And I actually abandoned it. And the main reason I did is I was like, I've done this story. I'm not going to do this story again. I don't want to be telling the same archetype over and over again. I do like taking a stab at an archetype a lot of times, even if it's a well-worn one. I think that that's fun. But I don't want to be doing it over and over. I want to do it once really well and then move on. And so that is why I think I could have even said early on that I would have known that subgenre hopping was a thing that I was going to be doing a lot of.
They did have a follow-up question.
Okay.
They say, what are some of the ways in which one could build this sense of multiple different stories fitting together and existing in the same general space beyond just using familiar characters or locations?
Ooh, well, familiar characters and locations are kind of
that's it. Yeah.
the big thing. Let me think. Is there another way to do this? I mean, the way that Stephen King and Michael Moorcock did it is different, right? Both of them used familiar lore to tie everything together rather than actual specific settings. Granted, you had the Dark Tower, which was crossing over to some familiar settings for Stephen King, but it was more this whole concept. He was using a conceptual or a lore interconnection, and Moorcock did the same thing. These were two early pioneers in the world of interconnected fantasy worlds. Obviously, Stephen King, still very well known. Michael Moorcock, probably underread for what he deserves, would be my guess. Excellent writer. And he was connecting his stories through themes, archetypes, and lore. And that is another way you could do it, right? Like, this is the same way, like another person who's doing this kind of the way that Moorcock was actually Legend of Zelda. Is that, what's his name? Anyway, Legend of Zelda is telling the same story in different ways, in different worlds, with different characters who all fit the same archetype. And it's kind of this whole, we're going to do different variations on a theme, like Pachelbel's canon. Did I pronounce that right? Did I?
Pachelbel's?
Pachelbel. Pachelbel's canon, thank you. Yeah, pianist over here. So like Pachelbel's canon, right? Where a lot of people take the canon, play it through normal, and then you hear a variation, and then you hear a variation. A lot of people who like interconnected stories and themes, you see this more in Asia, like telling the story except slightly different, and then the story except slightly different, and seeing what variations on this theme you can do. That's a different way of doing it.
From the chat, following Noadon, a Stormlight podcast, says, what specific story are you most proud of right now?
What specific story am I most proud of right now that I have written?
Probably the last one you finished.
Probably, well, I am probably more... See, here's the thing. I'm deep in revisions on Wax and Wane, and so when you're deep in revisions on something, you're not usually very proud of it, because you're like, oh man, look at all these things that I got wrong, right? But I finished up Skyward 4, and immediately moved off it, despite knowing that it has a whole bunch of things that need to be fixed in it. And I like how that story turned out, but I'm not sure I can be proud of it yet, because I know how much work it's going to take to fix that story. And it's a normal amount of work, but it's still looming over me. So what am I most proud of at this point? Probably Skyward 3, because it was so broken. That wasn't a normal amount of work. That was an extraordinary amount of work. And I am proud that I was able to bring it together. And I was also kind of very proud of being able to look at the need for the novellas, work with Jancy, say, hey, there's this hole in the story that, like, the Skyward novellas are of a different flavor than a lot of the novellas I've done before, where Skyward novellas are a little, I won't call them required reading, but more required reading-ish, just because they're filling some big plot gaps that I was realizing that the series had. And we needed something in there. And I'm really pleased with how we were able to find the right piece to fit in that puzzle to fix that problem. So I'm very proud of that whole situation.
I saw someone in the chat mention Leatherbound's wondering if Skyward was going to be part of that.
There are plans to eventually do Skyward. We have the
Sorry,
rights.
I saw her respond, and I was like, I don't think that's right.
What, she said no?
Yeah.
No plans? So here's the thing. We have the rights. Reckoners we don't have the rights on, correct?
We don't, right.
And so we would like to maybe do a Reckoners one, but we would have to go to the publisher and work out the rights. And by the time we signed for Skyward, we knew this was a thing we loved to do. And so we just included it in the contract. So Skyward is actually more likely than Steelheart, even though Steelheart came out first. Though I would like to do both of them eventually. The primary Cosmere stories are our focus, and so it remains to be seen whether we will have the resources in-house to put together other books. Does that sound correct
right.
to you, Kara? Yeah.
Sounds like a plan.
We would like to. We are not promising them.
Yes.
So.
Sorry, I'm looking up one thing. Okay. Abject Bed 3833 says, when Rabonio said, for Ado's sake, was she referring to Beodomishram or Adonalsium?
Adonalsium.
Friendzone says, does Brandon hate corn?
I do not hate corn. I grew up in Nebraska. I am incapable of hating corn. Though, there's this thing where we have to husk it when we see it. It's like an innate sort of genetic trait for whatever reason. When we see it with husk on it, we got to rip it off. We just lose control of ourselves. We barely know what is happening to us. And then we put on a giant red hat and eat a hot dog. This is a reference to Nebraska football. But no, I do like corn. Corn on the cob, obviously, well, perhaps not obviously, but for me being the most superior form of corn, but I will eat corn in other methods.
Well, corn on the cob, especially when you do it like the Mexican grilled style.
You like the Mexican?
Oh,
See,
yeah.
I'm more of a
S-tier.
purist.
Oh, okay.
I just want corn and butter, and
See, if I'm doing that way, I need to have grill marks
Yeah.
on my corn. Grill marks on corn is beautiful.
grill marks on corn is good. Jordan makes a good grilled corn, my brother.
Okay. They even used an interrobang in their question.
Did
by
they?
The way. They did.
Did they manage to? Did they use just the two characters, or did they manage to get the actual? There's
It's a single character.
single character. They got the thumbs up to you. Well done,
Good job, Friendzone.
Friendzone. Knowing how to use the interrobang is pretty awesome.
Adel RD says, what radiant order would Chris be in?
What radiant order would Chris be in? Chris could fit into several different radiant orders. She's she's most obviously Elf Scholar, right? Like, but I don't want Elf Scholars to be the only scholar order. That's the thing to keep in mind. In fact, there can be a scholar in basically any order. And so I'd have to let me think about it. See, the thing about the orders is I don't necessarily want the Knights Radiant orders to be too restrictive. I don't want them to be Harry Potter houses, in other words. And what do I mean by that? Like, I don't want them to be defined by... I don't want them to be too exclusive to anyone who would want to be in them. Like, the number one thing that's going to determine what order you would be in is what order you would want to be in and whether you jive with the spren of that order in the right way. And it's possible that you won't be able to just jive with the spren and it wouldn't work out. But I don't want, it's not like all the brave ones go into this order and all of the nerdy ones go into this order. That's not how I want to run it. I want to kind of run these based on the truths that you're speaking, the oaths that you're speaking, what those mean to you, what you're trying to do. And some of those are going to be archetypal, right? The whole idea of protecting or things like that. But, I could make a pretty good argument for Chris in Lightweaver. I could make a pretty good argument for Chris in Truthwatcher. You can make good arguments for a good half the orders for any given character, and that's how I want it to be.
Luke Connor from the chat says, no buffering issues here. If he's just saying that, I'm guessing you are having some buffering issues. Because we were talking about that quite a while ago.
Somebody else said it, just barely.
Oh.
So they're responding.
Tanner Rich says, Adolin is a Hufflepuff.
Adolin...
Do you agree?
What's that?
Do you agree?
I kind of agree that Adolin's a Hufflepuff, yeah.
You're probably making Lex very happy.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know if I agree, though.
Yeah. Where would you put Adolin?
Gryffindor?
Gryffindor's too easy an answer, though, is the problem. That's part of the problem with the Harry Potter houses.
Only four.
It's
He would have picked Gryffindor, though, so thus he would have probably been in it.
Probably. It's just everybody's a Gryffindor, right?
No.
Everybody in stories is a Gryffindor, right?
I'm carrying my Slytherin water bottle right now.
Right. Like if you self-select out, but if you look at the core cast of Stormlight, right? Yeah. What is Shallan? She's a Gryffindor. What is Kaladin? She's a Gryffindor. What is Adolin? He's a Gryffindor. What is Dalinar? Dalinar's old Dalinar Slytherin, modern Dalinar is Gryffindor, right? Like, it's because she built Gryffindor to be, here is the protagonist house. They have the attributes of protagonists of stories. Aren't the scholars supposed to be Ravenclaw? No, shut up. They're Gryffindor if they're protagonists, right? Which I say with affection. I think it's a lot of fun. But it is one of the issues you run into in something like this is, like, your main trio in Harry Potter is what she said should be a Hufflepuff, a Ravenclaw, and a Gryffindor going on an adventure. But she put them all in the same house because, for narrative convenience, which totally makes sense. By the way, Ron in the books is not a Hufflepuff, but Ron in the movies is a Hufflepuff. Can we agree on that? Movie Ron, unfortunately, is well, I shouldn't say unfortunate because there are plenty of Hufflepuffs who'd be proud to claim Ron, but regardless, I find it fun to talk on. Most of this is tongue in cheek. Even when I call myself a Slytherin, it is tongue in cheek because
though probably not inaccurate. I mean, if you had to choose the four,
if you are picking Slytherin as it's depicted in the books, then no, I'm not a Slytherin, right? I am not the house of white supremacists, right? Like, that's, they say what Slytherin is, but the show in the books is, this is the house you go to if you are a racist. That's the thing that defines a Slytherin. And like conceptually, we want to make there be heroic qualities to all 4 of them. And she did a better job of that with the other 3. But there is a house of just straight up villains. When I say Slytherin, it is because I do consider ambition a primary attribute of what I do, of who I am. But I also do it because it's kind of a little bit of a protest saying the house system doesn't quite work in the real world as much as we all are amused by talking about it. And this is my kind of act of defiance by self-selecting into Slytherin. So, there you go.
That makes sense to me. Okay.
But I don't think it was ever intended to hold up to the rigor that we have placed upon it. She did not know when she was creating this book series. The rigor that would be placed upon the silly little system she came up with to say, these are the good guys and these are the bad guys.
Yep. Albin Raff says, a lot of things changed for certain characters between Warbreaker and Stormlight. Will we get any of that story in future Stormlight books, or do we have to wait until Nightblood?
You probably are going to have to wait till Nightblood. Not guaranteed. Like, there is a chance I'll do some Vasher stuff in Stormlight to catch you up. It's going to depend on how long it takes to get to Nightblood and various things like that. I have plans to find a place for some of this if I can't get to Nightblood in time. But most of it, I'm hoping, will be able to be in the Warbreaker sequel.
Okay. Our Measurement 140 wants to know if we're going to be doing a meme review this year.
Will we be doing a meme review? I suspect that we will. I mean, it's up to you.
I think people liked it last time.
My children, and things like that. So maybe.
I should create like a meme email address where
Yeah.
people can just send me their memes.
Send the best memes.
I mean,
You
I
should
usually
do
just
that.
get them from Crim Posting,
Yeah.
which is a good aggregation.
Getting people sending their favorite memes, and we will show them, and we'll rank the memes. We should come up with a cool ranking scale of the memes, which is not just a simple 1 to 10. It should be, this one is flavored like Hufflepuff. This is a Hufflepuff meme. That's your grade.
That's hilarious.
Grade Hufflepuff. Grade Slytherin. That one was brutal.
Or which ideal they reached.
Maybe.
Kathy says she finds them all on Tumblr, but we don't care what she does. So, thanks for nothing, Kathy. Homie Reborn says, how many times have humans been created and or evolved in the Cosmere? We know it's at least 2, but could it be more?
It could be more, and I won't put a definite number on it because that would lock me into not being able to change my mind if I come up with a world where it makes sense.
So at least 1. Got it. Adel RD says, who will be the main interlude character in Stormlight 5?
Stormlight 5 is Zeth, is the main interlude character. So, flashbacks of Zeth's childhood intermixed with Zeth in the modern day.
So I have a question after this next question. It's from Eros Mikolov. They say, do you regret setting the precedent that Stormlight books are as big as they are?
Nope. They're the length I want them to be. And I have always said to people, these will be at the length that I want them to be. I view them as 1,000-page epics. That's how I plot them. That's how I pace them. That's how I want them to be. If I changed my mind, I would let you all know. But I have never felt constrained by that. I have more felt constrained by the realities of publishing and how long I can get before the presses break. And I'm much more comfortable with that now that I know I can do 100,000-word novels that are tight and, things like Skyward or I'll use Bands of Mourning instead of the new one because the new one's 150. But the fact that I can do that and I can do novellas that are tight, means that I can with confidence say that I'm writing the Stormlight books at the length they deserve to be, not at an artificially inflated length, if that makes sense.
Correct me if I'm wrong. I might be conflating stories. At one point, you had considered making each of the books like 3 different books, right? Or breaking them up?
No, you're conflating.
Okay.
So I plot them in order to be able to put this all together. I plot them as
3 different books. Got
Yeah,
it.
not as 3 different books, but as a trilogy intended to be read together without breaks between it. But that helps me conceptualize how to build it. The 5th one will not be built that way, though, as I was alluding to earlier. It'll be built some way else, and I will tell you about that when we get closer to it and after I make sure that this structure is working. But Tom Doherty, the publisher of Tor, did come to us and try to get us to split them into thirds.
So I'm very curious what the chat would prefer: 10,000 or 1,200 page books, or 30 300-page books, because that would be a big series.
That would be a big series. They're going to pick the big ones because that's how they're intended to be read.
Yeah.
I'm sure some people would prefer them broken up, easier to hold, and things like that. But
Well, and they might be assuming that they'd have a better release schedule with the shorter books, but it would be the same.
No,
and you release those really regularly.
they could come out every year if we did it that way.
Well, I mean, but right now you're
Yeah.
doing every 3 years, so they're
Right.
really getting the equivalent.
They're getting the equivalent, but Tom, as a publisher, would much rather have a product to sell every year that's 1/3 the length than a bigger product every 3 years. The bookstores would much rather have them be split. We faced quite a bit of pressure and some very large monetary incentives to split them. And we said no because monetary incentives don't mean as much to us as they used to, shall we say. The company no longer is beholden to some of these things, so that is very nice. But yeah.
I like Anna Davies' answer. She says, "Gimme the fat boys," and I agree. I like big books. Books can almost never be long enough for me.
See, here's the reason monetarily that they would want to split them. They can't charge 3 times, or a Stormlight book is easily 4 times the length of the other books that the publisher is doing. Skyward, as I mentioned, 110,000 words. And Rhythm of War is 460. So it is 4 times the length of another book. And the amount of resources that they put into that is, around 4 times as much. Not 4 times as much in everything, but 4 times as much in editorial work. The artwork that we put in is definitely 4 times as much as a regular book. And the writing time and the printing costs are not 4 times as much because of individual things. But the space on the shelves at the bookstores, it takes up the space of 3 or 4 other books that all cost $10 and it costs $15. And so the bookstores we don't want to carry these. They will because they sell so well, but they don't want to because they could shelve a bunch of other books in that slot. And if you are, the bookstore higher-ups, you could probably understand, man, we could carry 3 other books that all sell for $10 each, or we can sell this one that sells for $15. That makes not a lot of good monetary sense, and that's why the publisher pushes for it. But then we would have 3 books probably priced at $30 or $32, as opposed to 1 book priced at $36 or whatever it is. And so the publisher's like, here's $10 million. Do you want to split these now? Because it's really that kind of money that we're talking about with splitting them. But we don't have to care about that. So
you can follow your artistic heart and do what you want.
Do what we want. But that's what makes it funny when people are like, he's just writing these big books for... The people always pick weird things to me. There was someone on one of the things that's like, he's writing this book for the money of it, or he's doing it this way for the money, or he's selling out in this way. There is no way to avoid being called a sellout, whatever it is that you choose, which is also amusing because the moment you sell your art, you're kind of selling out, right? Like that's the whole. You are selling your art, and I wouldn't say that I'm not a sellout in that term because there's this idea that something is a little more pristine if you just wrote it for you and didn't intend to sell it to an audience. But I write for an audience. I like having an audience. I am a showman. I am a storyteller. I am that person on the stage who really wants you to get I get feedback from the big reveal that you get to experience. That's the type of storyteller I am. If I do not have an audience, then I am not as happy. I definitely would keep writing without one, but and so it's this always this weird push and pull between artistic pursuits and monetary pursuits and audience versus personal desires for things and things like that. But regardless, I feel very confident that I'm writing the books at the right length, and I'm always writing the book that I want to be writing.
I just found out from Kellen that Howard Lyon is in the chat, and I'm just looking for him. We just want to say hello. Little tip of the hat.
Mr. Lyon. We very much like
There he is.
Howard Lyon.
Go give his Instagram a follow if you want to see some beautiful stuff.
Yep.
Check out the beautiful beard he has that I'm incredibly envious of.
And he is working on various cool things that eventually we'll be able to show you. We like to keep Howard busy.
For this next question, I'm actually going to see if Kara wants to come over, because this one's probably for you.
Come over if I answer from here.
Well, just so they can hear. The next question is from the chat from Andrew DMth. He says, with the Minicon moving to downtown SLC, does that mean more authors, more artists, more booths and tables?
Yes, but not exponentially.
Okay.
There you go. Good answer.
I was hoping you were going to come on camera, but I see you
nice.
tactically avoided that.
That's
I didn't want to be alone. That's really what it comes down to. Oh, yay.
that's a good answer.
There you go. Just for you, Adam.
Thank you.
We don't want it to get to the point that any of our guests feel ignored, and we want them to all be treated really well, and so we don't want to grow too quickly.
And right now it is invite only, so we don't
Yes.
want a bunch of people
Yeah.
saying, hey, pick me.
Yes.
We are still an invite only.
We're invite only. Basically, are you one of Brandon's friends?
Or licensees.
Or licensees, yes. Did you go to college with Brandon? And or are you, yeah. So
somehow affiliated with
Dragonsteel, or I don't know what Charlie is. Whatever Charlie is. So, yeah.
So going back to a question from a while ago about the length of Stormlight books, a follow-up was, are you excited to return to more quote-unquote normal length novels for Mistborn Era 3?
Well, Era 3 is going to be an in-between length.
Okay.
Right? Normal, I guess. I haven't done 200,000 words since Warbreaker.
Okay.
And so it's been quite a long time since I've done that length. So I'm actually kind of eager to see how it feels going back to the Elantris Mistborn Era 1 Warbreaker length, those were 200,000 word books. So like double the size of a normal book, but not doubled again, which makes a Stormlight book, or a Wheel of Time book. So yeah, I am excited to get back to that length. I'm very excited for Era 3, but I can't start on Era 3 yet, and so I can't afford to get too excited by it.
Yeah, you are a ways away.
I am a ways away. We got a Stormlight book in between, and that is a huge undertaking for the company. So.
Oh, this is an interesting question that Beth Potterville just said. What makes a good editor?
So this is an excellent question. Two things, Beth, I would say to you. Well, I'm gonna amend that. Three things. The first thing is being able to see what the author is trying to do and helping them achieve that, rather than trying to turn the story or work into what you would make. And that is really difficult to do. Giving feedback as an experienced... Ooh, did we finish Elantris?
We are done.
Ooh. All right, so this is beginning something here, because this is Alloy of Law, which is this Christmas time's leatherbound book, assuming that I get them signed in time. So Alloy of Law, it's very pretty with the kind of rust-colored red that Isaac built for it. And that's going to be this Christmas, asterisk, if Brandon signs them fast enough.
And in case people want to know, now that they're signed, it's still a good 4 to 5 months before we get them in the warehouse.
So, yeah, Elantris, we just finished, but it's still 4 to 5 months.
Printing
sorry
is
about
slow.
that. Printing is slow, and
Especially
it's even
right
slower
now.
Yep.
Everything is slow.
Everything is slow. Supply chains are very slow. But
Yeah, I see people asking about when pre-orders start for the Leatherbounds. I don't know if we have a specific date, but maybe Kara and
I
Isaac.
would say it's going to be a while.
yeah, like we have to make sure that I can get these signed in time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
Right.
hold your breath.
Yeah. Hold your breath. Man, Isaac, this color scheme is beautiful. I really like it for Alloy of Law.
You should be here any minute.
Oh, I thought I saw him walk in. Nope. Okay. I thought I saw him over there, but it's
Well,
dark and there's some bright lights on
They're
there.
still beautiful,
Yes, they are still beautiful.
whether he's here or not. For some reason, Camposteria 7, just in all caps, said Adam. Hello? I don't know, again, how I'm supposed to interpret these things. Okay, going on to the next question before Isaac gets here, and you guys just chat, since we all just enjoy that. 328-382-943 says, how many future Cosmere books have you already decided the title for? Are you planning on having another title for Era 3 and 4 like Wax and Wane?
So I'm. This is a great question. So I've decided a bunch of titles, but I don't really decide titles. Like, it depends on what you like. Dragonsteel will be called Dragonsteel the series, right? I don't know if the first book is still going to be called Lyra of Partenel or not. I have to write the book and figure it out. I'm less pleased with that title the more time I get from it. And what are various series going to be called and things like that. With Mistborn, it's really interesting because the publisher would like to just kind of do not a full rebranding, but they don't want to go out big with Mistborn 8. Yes, Mistborn 8 was what it will be, and be like the 8th book in a series, because they don't want to be intimidating to new readers, right? And they still worry that Wax and Wane was a little too intimidating to readers of the original series. They want to find some way to market it in which it says this is just a brand new cool series from Brandon. By the way, it is in the Mistborn world. That's how they would like it to be marketed. So I don't know what we'll end up calling the series of it. If it'll have Mistborn in the series title, if it's not going to have no idea yet. That's all marketing stuff. It won't. If you're on this stream, it won't really matter to you because you know what it is. But it's to the people that may not know what it is, right? Like if all things go well and we have a Mistborn film coming out in 3 years or whatever, and Tor has a brand new Mistborn series in hand, what do they want to do with marketing that? So
I'm guessing it will have something to do with the print on stickers saying now a major motion picture.
Well,
Because that seems to be the only go-to strategy they use.
they do like that strategy. So
Anyway, a question that I have been reminded several times that we did not answer is, what makes a good editor?
Oh, yeah. So Number one is that what I talked about. Help an author make a book, the best version of the book the author is trying to make. Item number two is being able to see something unfinished for its potential. Meaning you have to see through the stuff that is going to get fixed and not get fixated on it, which is interesting because people always talk about editors as the people who are persnickety about various punctuation and things like that, right? That's not actually what makes a good editor. That's what people think an editor does. But if we're talking a straight-up book editor, not a copy editor or something like that, the editor's job is to see the shape of the story through the rough. The editor is the person who can look at a half-carved statue and see that the anatomy is good and that corrections don't need to be made, or to see that the anatomy is off, that the balance is going to be off on the final figure, even though the legs aren't carved yet because of the way that the stance is with the hips, right? Like, that makes a good editor. And then the third thing is a person who can shepherd a book through all the different pieces that are moving in order to bring it together. An editor is not just a person who sits and crosses T's and dots I's. In fact, they do very little of that. What they do is they have a very good eye for picking out what's going to be popular before it's popular. They have a good eye for looking at brand new authors and being able to acquire them. They know how to interface with an art department and a marketing department and a publicity department and are able to advocate for that book. And so in that way, an editor is a manager, but for a book rather than a person. And these are all things that pop society does not see as an editor. And it's kind of, I wouldn't say it's an issue because people who go through editing departments or programs all know all these things. But if you know someone who wants to be an editor, a book editor, that's the sort of thing that they want to do. It is not learn how to use the proper there. Though, of course, knowing how to use the proper there is something that an editor should be able to do.
Sorry, somebody just had something on the chat about me, so I had to put it on there. Apparently, they've always pictured me as Woody Harrelson, and them coming to the stream has been worldview shattering for them. So,
okay.
So many things are being said about me I don't know how to interpret.
I really have no idea how to interpret that one either. Yeah.
Sorry?
No. Thank you.
Thank you?
Could be a thank you.
Okay. Sapphire Bombay says, will you be doing Reddit updates for Stormlight 5 like you did with Rhythm of War?
Plan is yes. I was not as diligent with those on Skyward 4 as I had been on some previous books, so we'll see. Juggling all of these things can be difficult, but my plan is yes. Once I really get into it, I need to get the Lost Metal revision done before I can really dive into Stormlight, I've decided, and so I have been spending a lot of time on that.
Then we have Bill Shear saying Adam looks exactly like how I imagined, which means he has a terrible imagination. I feel bad for him or them. Bobby2797 said, you once said that you want to explore in your books how humans change in their behavior and personality when living several hundred or 1,000 years. Many of these characters in your books go mad. For example, the Heralds or the Lord Ruler. But still, Hoyt seems as, quote-unquote, normal as someone can be after such a long time. Is there any reason why he didn't become, quote-unquote, mad?
It's more that what happened to the others, something is wrong, if that makes sense. What's going with the Heralds, with the supernatural madness of the Heralds is related to their specific situation. With the Lord Ruler, I don't think what happened to the Lord Ruler, his is a really interesting situation. I would say that it is not supernatural. It is his isolationist attitude, the pressures placed upon him, and things like that. It's a very normal type of mental, I don't want to call mental illness normal, but you know what I mean. A conventional mental illness if you will, exacerbated by extreme periods spent alone and isolating self. And that's where you get what happened to him.
Cool. Well, I'm going to move, and I'm going to let Isaac come sit here. So have a good night, everybody. I'll still be here,
Yep.
but I'm going to let these guys talk.
You might hear Adam's voice from off screen. Oh, is this what's this playmat that's down there?
Oh, this is one that Jane got me for Christmas from Steve Argyle.
Oh, that's
It's cute.
that is really cool. I have not seen that of his. You're gonna have to show it now. I use playmats for mouse pads and everything because they're just so nice. And
I have one of those on my desk. It's the best.
few people do cute like Steve Argyle does cute.
Cute and creepy at the same time.
Yep. Hi, Isaac.
Hey, Brandon, how are you?
I'm doing well. How are you?
I'm doing all right.
You brought us a book to show
I brought
off?
stuff to show off.
Yeah.
So, yeah. I don't know what you've been talking about. I've been chauffeuring kids around. So what this is kind of a homebrew version of the White Sand Omnibus that we printed up to just test a bunch of things, make sure that we had a copy around. So I don't know what I can show you, but like some of this is.
Kind of taped in.
So well, this is we put this was an early version.
Right.
So then I would show Brandon, talk to some people about it, and then here's some updated things that were going on. These are from the Ars Arcanum. Chris writes these throughout the book, kind of to give us some world building that you get in a novel, but it's a little bit harder to figure out how to do that in a graphic novel. So there's 14 of those, art by Ben McSweeney. And then at the
Are those all new for the Omnibus?
these are all new for the Omnibus. More world building, and then we have a prologue with art by Nebetse Zitro. So, and he this is a version of this is in the original manuscript. It's been adjusted. But you can see some of this art, and it'll print up way better in the Dynamite version. This is just a print on demand sort of thing. But this goes through. There's 38 new pages by Nebetse Zitro that includes a prologue, and then we just we alternate back and forth between viewpoints of Kenton and Chris until it intersects with what was in the original graphic novels. And part of that is by adding this beginning, the hope is that you attached more to the characters a little bit more, and then also we're setting up things that happen at the end as well. So, but yeah, it's complete. I think it turned out really nicely. One thing is Dan Dos Santos did these cool silhouettes for us that will be on the front and back and on the different part pages. So I don't know what else to show here, but
if you're not aware, it's for pre-order now.
yes,
This is why we're bringing that.
I didn't know if I missed maybe that.
We did Q&A off of Reddit before, so we are shifting gears to, hey, guess what? We have a new book for pre-order.
Oh, okay, yep. So Dynamite is doing a pre-order for this book.
Yep, in like various different forms. You can get a paperback, you can get a hardcover, you can get a...
So there's 4 different forms. You can get the digital PDF. The next level up is a trade paperback. The next level up is your hardcover with sort of a, what do you call this? It's the case wrap hardcover where the cover is built into the, like this, but it's not this exact cover. And then they have a deluxe version that has this foiled on the front on a nice material in a slipcase. And that's their deluxe edition. The content of all of them is the same. It's just sort of the presentation that's different for each one of those.
Yeah. So people have been asking about this for a while. Isaac has put in a lot of work helping get this because it's not just those new pages, the 30-something new pages plus the 14 or whatever it is, you said, new lore pages. You've kind of gone over almost every page, the artwork, right?
And I'm wondering if I still have some of the stuff in here. There were a few pages where, for a while, in the front of this binder that you see here, I had printed out the comic book and I had cut up some of them, and I was trying to figure out, okay, so we need to make this change, but that means how do I rearrange these panels and then tell the story a little bit differently? That was only apparent really at the beginning, and then it just smoothed out. Dynamite laid a really great groundwork. Specifically, our friend Rick Hoskin, who did the scripting for this, laid a really great groundwork for this. What we were doing was finessing it, making it so that it was more Cosmere aware. I mean, the story behind the reason we did this was Brandon and I were in Germany and after a tour, and we sat down and we're eating dinner on one of these outdoor places, and Brandon was like, so Taldane's really important to the Cosmere. We need to do some things to lay groundwork for future things. And so that's kind of how it came about, that we're like, well, we need to make sure that the graphic novel then is as canonical as we can get it.
Yep, which is why we decided to do a kind of rebuild and things like that. It was our first graphic novel, and the artists and writers we worked with were delightful, but we did not have experience in the first version of White Sand to get everything in there that we wanted to get in there.
Yeah.
And so this rebuild is to get some more of that done.
Yeah, there were some inconsistencies that we corrected, and you're still going to see some because we couldn't fix everything, right? But things like trying to make the portrayal of Sand Mastery a little more consistent throughout.
Yep.
There were a lot of ceiling fans.
In the art.
Yeah, I'm not going to pretend that didn't happen. There's like a boombox or an EKG machine in something, right? And this was just a matter of the artist not being as familiar with the Cosmere as we are. And so we tried to find all these things and erase the ceiling fans and things that you wouldn't see on Taldane.
Yep. You read the Starbucks cups?
Was there a Starbucks cup somewhere?
In a Game of Thrones reference.
Oh, Game of Thrones.
Yeah.
Okay, got it. Yeah. Basically, yeah. We're erasing the Starbucks cups.
Yep.
Yeah. But there were some other things that we did too, and we threw in a few more Easter eggs as far as a little more world building for the Dark Side continent, and which Brandon and I have discussed quite a bit. So we wanted to kind of seed some of those things for possible future outings. Yeah.
We're very pleased with how the book turned out.
I am too. It's been long enough now that I've forgotten what I've done, and I can read it and go, hey, cool.
There are now under 100 of the deluxe editions left.
Under 100 deluxe editions left. So
Yeah, somebody in the chat, and I just put a new microphone on, so let me know if you're having a hard time hearing me. Someone said they're at like 970% or 17% funded, so they just crossed the $90,000 threshold, which is pretty good for the first few hours.
So there we are.
Yeah, there we are.
And you guys can feel free to throw us questions in the chat. About anything you want to ask Isaac. It doesn't have to be about this. Otherwise, be collecting some of those for us, Adam. But
I can talk a little bit about the process of what we did.
Go ahead.
If you want.
And while you're doing that, I'm going to show a little video, if you're okay with that I put together.
Cool.
Oh,
yeah.
Does it have audio? Or
No audio. I'm just going to let you guys talk over.
Okay.
So and I read everything that was set on Taldane. So there are some of your earliest work was set on Taldane. And so I went back and read those. And then I read White Sand, the one where it combines all that. So Brandon's first novel was White Sand. prime, I guess. I
Yes.
don't know what we call it. And then you wrote Star's End, and then you came back and you finished the story of White
Yeah,
Sand.
I
So
did the
there's
second half.
So there, if you put them together, that's about 400,000 words of writing. And then you rewrote it for like your 7th or 8th book.
Yeah, I think that is still just White Sand Prime.
Yeah.
The 7th or 8th book is White Sand.
Is White Sand.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's right.
And so White Sand Prime I wrote in 1994 to 1997,
Yeah.
something like that. My first novel, and it's real. It's real first novel-y.
I took copious notes of just because I figured going to the source for when you were actually thinking about the naming conventions and the
Right.
languages and things. So I took a lot of notes for that in case we needed to introduce new characters, kind of what is the paradigm for how they're named? How does the Kurtztian language work to some degree? But then the White Sand that you wrote, that was your 8th novel, was basically the same story, but you had grown as a storyteller, so now you got that done in about that same amount of stuff done in a 200,000 words range, right? Yeah. So
I'm just trying to think, is it 8 or is it 7?
I don't know if it's 7. Was Dragonsteel?
I don't know, because I just told the story earlier that I abandoned book 9. And I abandoned book 9
Okay.
because I felt like I was repeating what I'd done in Dragonsteel.
Yeah.
And I don't know if there was a book between or if it was.
Yeah. So I think 6 is Elantris.
I know 6
7
is
7 is Dragonsteel. 8 White Sand.
Maybe. Or
That's right. Adam says that's right.
at least that's where the way it is
In
the
the folders.
in the folders. But that's in the Dropbox, taken from a computer.
Yeah.
Taken from a computer. Taken from a computer, and eventually put in a Dropbox.
We'd have to. Some of those have the original dates in
Yeah.
them. We'd have to look at the original
So.
dates to see. But that was kind of the process there. Then I reread the entire graphic novel with the manuscript out.
You had to do what I did on the Wheel of Time.
Little bit,
Yeah.
yeah. So noting the changes, trying to figure out, okay, what was maybe Brandon's original intent for some of these things. Again, Rick did an amazing job, but just kind of trying to figure out, okay, what do we need to keep in, what do we don't. I went back to notes from Joshua that he had sent you.
Oh, really?
Yeah, and then there was notes
When
from
you rejected the book?
yeah, when you
Uh-huh.
were looking for an agent.
Yeah.
Just some of his things that he was like, hey, you should change this. And so
Mm-hmm.
I'm like, okay, let's take a look at that. And then I also went to our meeting notes that we had when it was, I think, you, me, Peter, and Karen.
Mm-hmm.
And we discussed what would be revised if we were to revise this. And so I also adjusted some of those things. So anyway, I'm really happy with how it turned out. I think it's our...
It's our labor of love over the last few years.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it played pretty well with beta readers. They seem to like it. So hopefully you will too.
I have seen people in the chat wanting to know who you are, so you should introduce yourself again.
I am Isaac Stewart. I'm Brandon's creative director at Dragonsteel Entertainment. I'm the one who figures out how things look and then hires the right people to do that, hopefully.
Yep. Isaac has an art and animation background, among other various sundry things.
Yeah.
And he's one of the vice presidents at our company. At least we think that's what the title will be, is vice president.
Yeah.
It keeps changing.
Something like that.
To Brian Stevens, who just got back from buying the deluxe edition and wants to know what they missed, we actually just said how the Cosmere ended, so
Yeah.
sorry you missed out.
Yep, have to earn it.
Isaac, earlier I was gushing about how good I think the red looks
Oh, cool.
as the secondary color for these.
I'm glad you liked the red on those. So the story there is that I wanted to try a metallic ink, and so it's slightly metallic. We'll know a little more once we get the art in there.
Yeah.
But it's a little bit of a brighter red than we used in the original Mistborn Leatherbounds, which
It
is more of a
looks-
rust red.
Yeah. This looks rust to me still.
Okay.
But in a vibrant sort of rust.
Yeah.
I really like how it looks.
I'm glad you like it. So that's one of the differences that we'll see between the original trilogy Leatherbounds and this one is that we just to shake it up, tried a different red for these. We won't be changing it in the earlier ones probably, but this
And
was.
You are done with both of these Leatherbounds, right?
We're still working on it. So Peter's still doing his edit on them, and there's a little bit of layout still going on, and there's still art stuff that I'm putting together.
Okay, so we're not done with these yet.
Yeah.
Because I know you've started showing me stuff for Words of Radiance.
Yeah.
And so I've started to see concept art for new pieces for that.
Yeah. So we're kind of getting to the last maybe 25% of these, and then moving on to Words of Radiance because got to turn that in by the end of the year. So
Yeah, we it's always this weird thing where we're working several years ahead.
Yeah.
Because particularly now with how long it takes things.
right, yeah, the supply chain issues have made it so that we're looking months and months ahead, and they only allow us a certain amount of paper at a time, and our press dates are a little more rigid. Yep, it's just the realities of life as it is right now.
Yep. Too bad we picked a leather named Corona.
Yeah.
For those who missed that story, our old leather, the shade was called Corona.
Yeah, it was like, well, the brand was Corona.
The brand was Corona.
Yeah, and
okay.
it was a burgundy, but they got rid of that brand entirely, including our beautiful burgundy.
So we found a replacement.
We found a replacement that I think I might like it better, but most people
really
aren't.
like it.
Yeah, most people aren't going to notice a big difference. But it seems to take the foil really well, which I like. So
So, did we have any questions
Yeah.
pop up?
Yeah,
for
we have a
me or
couple.
Isaac?
Wilfredo Calderon says, will the White Sand Deluxe Edition be available to buy outside the Indiegogo campaign in the future? Do you know?
I don't know.
Okay.
That's
I mean, that's-
something that I need that we'll
We
need to
would
ask
assume
Dynamite.
so.
I
Yeah,
I
that might be a
assume so.
Dynamite question.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
I know that they've said that the trade paperback and the hardcover will.
Yeah. Okay. So, so what you mean? Okay, I misinterpreted that. The
Yeah.
deluxe means the slipcase.
The slipcase
I bet
edition.
that is not.
Yeah, I don't.
Right.
Yeah, I don't know.
and that's gone.
That
That's sold out.
I bet. Okay. So in my head, I was conflating. This is the deluxe edition of the book, the whole package.
Yeah.
Will there be more slipcased hardcovers with the foiling? That we don't know.
I would think that. So that one was limited to 1,000 because of the signed nature of them.
Getting signatures from me these days is rough, as evidenced by the fact that basically everything free moment I have, someone is stuffing someone in my hands to sign.
Sorry about that. Nick Barucci is in the chat, and he said
Oh.
they will be available.
They will be?
So that's
Okay,
great.
good job.
That's good to know.
Thanks, Nick.
Yep. Nick is one of the people over at Dynamite. So yeah. So yes, there will be some more available. You could ask Nick, are they going to try to add more to the Indiegogo, or is that just like after the fact?
Let us know in the chat, Nick.
Yeah. Because I know that occasionally when you see demand for things, you can,
Yeah, you can maybe add another
Add a
tier
tier
or
or
something.
something.
Yeah. Yeah. The problem is going to be getting signatures for me because I need to sign 10,000 of these. Kara, is that what we're doing?
Oh.
10,000 alloy,
No,
5,000 alloy and 5,000 shadows. And then how many words of radiance?
40,000.
40,000 words of radiance.
Yeah.
So I may have spoke too soon. He said the hardcover and regular ones, so I'm waiting for clarification.
Okay,
when he
so-
cats up.
On the
Yeah,
slip
he
case
got the
edition.
same, had made
Yeah.
the same mistake I did, the same
Yeah.
confusion that this edition, but whether or not there'll be more
Slipcased editions.
foiled versions,
Yeah.
those might be gone.
I know that this Indiegogo was limited to 1,000
Yeah.
signatures, so I would assume that if
Yeah,
they print it, that the others won't be with signatures.
yeah, if they could do more, yeah, because
Yeah.
I have to do 40,000 words of radiance before I can even approach signing anything else, and 10,000 of these, and we get what 800 an hour, about. Is that where we are?
How many? Oh, you sign around 800
Yeah,
an hour?
Around 800 an hour.
It depends on the day.
Yeah.
Depend on, yeah.
But if we,
It's about 1,500, which is probably faster.
yeah, so 7,500. So 50,000 divided by 7,500 is what, math people? How many hours of work do we have ahead of us?
How many live streams?
Yeah. Someone want to math that who has a computer over there?
50,000 divided by 7,500?
Yep.
6.666.
Oh, you mean 750 maybe?
750. Sorry. So 66.
750.
Yeah, sorry. 66. So we have 66 hours of signing books and a live streams too. So we have 33 live streams. Well,
Till January.
and recordings of intentionally Bright.
Right. Your podcast.
Yes.
Yeah.
So we have 33 weeks of signing already scheduled.
Okay, we should learn how to graft another arm to your back.
Yeah, so I can sign two at once.
Because we can't do the robotic sort of thing or have Jello sign them because then it's not signed by you.
Nope.
But if we have extra arms,
That's right. That's why we have unsigned versions for sale on the website.
yes. And
I think we still have some unsigned ones still available, or are they sold out?
Which one?
Any Leatherbounds?
We have Mistborn and Elantris.
Mistborn and Elantris we
Both
have unsigned.
Both
Yeah.
unsigned,
yeah.
We have nothing for sale signed right now.
Right. Yeah.
We are sold out, right?
If not, we're really close to being out.
There's a couple hundred
We
left.
have a few of Well and Hero, but not much.
A few of Well and Hero, but Mistborn okay. So, Mistborn 2 and 3, we have a few Leatherbounds of each left.
Yeah.
Very low.
And our priority going forward will probably be these first printings
Yeah,
of
it's
Leatherbounds.
not gonna we will occasionally, depends, but
Yeah, it just really
mostly
depends.
we're gonna focus on we want the Kickstarter to have signed copies, right?
Right,
Like
yeah.
that's
in 2023.
and we want the first run of Alloy of Law to be signed copies for those
Mm-hmm.
who are buying for their, so, yep. So we'll see. I sign as fast as I can, as you can tell, from sitting and asking me questions while I sign lots of things. Any updates over there, Adam, from Nick?
Some people asking about getting the slipcase without signature. He said that they're going to talk about it internally.
Okay.
So
we will have more information in the future.
I'm sure they'll email us and we can talk about it in the next weekly
Yeah.
update. Mm-hmm. Or maybe not by then.
All right. So what else do we have for Isaac or me?
Not too much about this. Some people just wanted to know how you guys are doing in general.
Isaac, how are you doing in general?
pretty good.
Yeah.
Yeah. Doing pretty good.
Isaac's got a new house.
Got a new house after last year was the look for a house year, because that was normally you can do that in like a couple weeks or a month, but that took us a whole year.
Yeah, we had quite the housing crunch in this area.
Yeah,
So
it was kind of crazy, but so we're settled in the house. It's we wanted to move closer to work, and we wound up farther, but that's how things work. But we like the place.
well, and it's funny because I was like, wow, they're moving again already. But then Kara's like, yay, I get to move. I'm like, oh,
Yeah.
You are the first person I have ever met in my entire life that's your response to moving. Kara is Isaac's wife, and Isaac is Kara's husband. And so, yeah, that explained a lot to me because I think you guys have lived in like 4 houses since.
Since we
Yeah, for the last 7-8 years, we have been in 4 different houses now.
5 if you count the rental.
Yeah, 5 houses. 5 houses.
While we were looking.
And I have been in this house all of that time.
Yeah, you have actually.
So, I don't buy, I don't move. I just add theaters and things to houses.
Well, I aspire to be in one place for a little while, so we'll see how this works out.
Yeah. Well, you'll have to see. You are married to someone who says,
Yeah.
"Yay, I'm moving." So,
Next time, can we move to like Hawaii? Somewhere warm.
yeah, this time of year, I'm like, why did I do my Hawaii trip in November?
Yeah.
November, October is not so bad in Utah.
Yeah. But January, February can be, bless you.
Yes, January, February is the time in Utah where you step outside and you're like, "Ugh."
Yeah. I understand why bears hibernate.
It's funny because I was thinking about this. Then I saw a webcomic that did it. But I was like, when the winter time comes in December, I'm ready for it. And it's like hot cocoa and Christmas music and lights and wrapping paper. And I'm like, this is a happy season. And then January comes and it's the same temperature and the same everything. But suddenly everything is miserable. Why, why am I not living in Hawaii?
It's been this way since before Roman times. I mean, the Romans didn't even have a name for January and February until they were like, maybe we should name that stretch of 60 days before we go to war. That everyone hates. But I used to really, really dislike January, and then I just realized that February is just basically January 2.0. But March, yeah.
March is nice.
March is nice usually. But yeah, I'm doing well.
I'm doing pretty well also.
Been getting back into my book, writing
yes,
Nikki Savage.
Yep.
Which I started reading it to Kara, and that actually got me out of a slump because it got me excited again.
That's good. Boatload of Mummies.
Boatload of Mummies, yep. That won't be on the front of the book, just the back of the book. It's basically Death on the Nile mixed with The Mummy, mixed with King Kong. So, with no King Kong. So, yeah. Set in the Mistborn universe with a side character that's mentioned in a newspaper.
Yes.
It's going to be really marketable that way.
It's going to be really great and everyone's going to love it.
I hope so. It's been fun so far.
Oh, Travis Scafford. I don't know if you guys know who he is. He's in the chat. But he does like esports, League of Legends commentary, things like that. But he says, has Isaac seen Arcane, and what do you think of the animation, if you have?
We just watched the first 3 episodes, yeah. I've only seen the first 3 episodes, and that was a emotional roller coaster. So I wasn't expecting some of that stuff. Really great writing. The animation, so it used to be 8 or 9 years ago that I paid attention to the animation to the point that if it was really bad, I couldn't watch the show. But it's been long enough since I've been an animator now that if I don't notice it, I assume it's good animation. But I do really like the style of it. I think it looks really cool, and there's something really fun about it. And I've never played League of Legends. I've seen a lot of the art. I think it's beautifully done. But yeah, I haven't noticed one way or the other on the animation.
Is it the greatest video game adaptation of all time?
I've not played the video game, so
Well, is it
so
the
I don't
greatest
know.
piece of media inspired by a video game?
It's a very interesting story.
Yeah, a lot of people are talking. I haven't seen it yet. It's going to turn, as I said before.
I'm saying the Arcane coming from League of Legends.
Oh, yeah.
That whole concept is very interesting to me.
Yeah.
How it came about.
How did it come about?
The fact that I think the game was like the first outlet to create the animated series. I think I could be misremembering.
I'll have to
Tell
read
me in
up
the
on
chat how I'm wrong. I'm sure there's
Yes.
going to be 1,000 people.
There are definitely going to be some LOL fans.
But we do have some video movies based on video games coming up, and I haven't seen a lot of. But I'd say the writing is really good.
Yeah.
I mean, it's almost too intense for me.
I did watch the Halo trailer.
Okay, I haven't seen that one.
Because I am a Halo fan, and it looked good, though it had me scratching my head in multiple ways. Like, they brought back one of the main voice actors. Thumbs up, good. They did not bring back the main voice actor. He's in his 70s, so I guess, but sounds wrong that Master Chief doesn't sound like Master Chief. I mean, he's got a helmet on all the time. You could they brought back Optimus Prime for Optimus Prime.
Right, yeah.
I mean, if they can bring back Optimus Prime, But maybe he didn't want to do it. You know, I could totally see being older and being like, I don't think I want to sign up for a series. And
why don't you get the guy who did Optimus Prime to do Master Chief?
But yeah, so there's some decisions there that are interesting.
And then I saw a trailer recently for the one with Tom Holland, Uncharted, right? So that's another video game.
Yep. I never got into the Uncharted games.
Yeah,
I'm a
I've never
pretty big
played it.
gamer, and that's one of those ones that shocks people that I haven't. I did play one of the Uncharted games, but I didn't get into them. I actually never even finished the one that I played, and it just isn't the type of gameplay I enjoy. Despite it being a very well done version of that gameplay. So I have no horse in that particular race. I will say that Tom Holland does not look very much at all like the character that I played in that video game.
Yeah, I wish for the world when Nathan Fillion got cast in that role, because he made like a short little fan fiction or fan film where he played the main character, and it looked really
that's
good.
cool.
And I think he would have done a pretty good job.
Tom Holland is a talented actor.
Yeah.
So hopefully it will be very good, and we will all love it. And then I will admit my fault in not having enjoyed the video games as much as my brother, who just loves them, and then go play all the Uncharted games and admit that I was wrong.
So I remember back in the day when the Final Fantasy Spirits Within trailer came out, and like everybody who'd played Final Fantasy ever had lost their minds because it was like the most. I don't know. At that point, the CG in that was amazing. The video that they released of like the lady blinking her eye and the eye looking around, and but then it just was sort of, that was a disappointment in a lot of ways.
I love the Final Fantasy games.
Yeah.
But their stories tend to be really convoluted in a way that works in a video game setting.
Yeah.
It is very hard to adapt. And I know Spirits Within was not any of the actual video games adapted.
Right.
It was an original story, but by the same team. And their stories without the gameplay elements and things did not work as well. In that
the world building was really great and cool, and it was visually cool. I mean, and this was when they were, there was still kind of that uncanny valley of a still image looks pretty much like a real person, but it starts moving around and it's not quite there yet. But they made huge leaps with that one.
It was visually delightful, and like you said, some of the world building elements. What makes the Final Fantasy games great is some of that. The story did not quite click. It's not didn't deserve to do as badly as I think in lore it may not be this case, but in lore it's like a super mega bomb. It killed the whole animation department and whatnot, and they stopped making movies. And maybe that's all true. It didn't deserve to do that. It was definitely a fantastic technical accomplishment mixed with a very watchable story, but it was not great.
I was in the animation program at BYU at the time, or the precursor to the animation program, and that trailer came out. We all lost our minds because that's when we were. Yeah. We knew what it took to do 3D, and that was pretty amazing, especially for the time.
So, another question we've been getting constantly through the chat recently is talking about the Arcanist, since both of you are on. Follow up to White Sand.
Yeah, that's sort of the working title. I'm still kind of in the back of my head thinking if we can find something that's White Sand and then still has that same cadence so that it feels like a. But yeah, I mean, calling it the Arcanist is good because it will be Chris's story. I mean, we follow Kenton in this one. I think the back half to this story would need to be Chris going back to Darkside and figuring out what to do with the Emperor there and saving her town. So what were they asking about it?
They wanted to know what the status.
The status is? I mean, I have a lot of notes for that. So
He's writing Boatload of Mummies right now.
Yeah.
So the status is finish Boatload of Mummies, release Boatload of Mummies, decide what he wants to do next in the Cosmere.
Yeah.
Because, Isaac's got the kind of do what he would like in the Cosmere ticket. And so
The one that I'm really excited and it might wind up doing after this, and I'm not going to give too much on it, but I love the title of it. But it would be set on Scadrial and be called Son of Bones. And so that's the one that I would really like to write after Boatload of Mummies, if it turns out okay. So
Lost in Discovery says, Isaac, are the maps you depict in the books drawn by in-world characters?
yes, they are. Yep. So a lot of them come from unnamed cartographers, and then Naz goes to the world usually at Chris's behest and goes and finds these things. And so I think occasionally Naz has done his own maps or he's drawn them based on maps that he's seen, but he's not principally a cartographer. He goes and finds things.
he's a grumpy secret agent,
Yep.
as how Isaac has described him.
So he's an old grump. And but yeah, I mean, usually I'm thinking about who would be drawing this map and for whom. So like in the new maps that we did for the Elantris 10th anniversary edition, the ones that are done for the Fjordell Empire, am I getting that right? They were done by cartographers who are worried that if they don't do this right, they might lose their head or be thrown in prison or something like that. And so they artificially inflate maybe the land mass of the empire, those sorts of things. So I'm thinking about that, and then you can do fun things because throughout history, maps have started wars. You draw a line on a map and you say this is where one thing starts and another thing begins, and people dispute it. There was a whole thing about when Pakistan was separated from India, and somebody drew a line on a map and set a date and said this is the time when Pakistan will be Pakistan and India will be India, and then like 1 million people died in the war that came after that. I'm thinking about these things when I make the maps because it's a relic of history on the worlds. It's a way to really flesh out some more of the world building.
Yeah, and you can find all kinds of little Easter eggs in that regard in a lot of the maps that Isaac does and commissions.
Yep.
I've seen people ask whether or not you guys are going to play Elden Ring.
I will play Elden Ring for sure.
What is that?
That's the new From Software George R. R. Martin collaboration.
I've seen a lot of clickbait titles from your talk at the Cytonic release.
Me being
so many clickbait titles.
Have they?
Yeah, all over.
Man, they like their clickbait. They like it way too much. I joked at Cytonic, and I've joked on this live stream before. I'm like, they pick. There's a fantasy author out there who plays their games and loves them, and instead it's George who gets to make a video game with them, who does not play video games, but he's also George, and George is pretty fantastic, and so being able to work with George is an awesome thing, and so I do not begrudge anybody having a chance or taking the chance to work with George R. R. Martin, who has earned both of his R's. We talked about that earlier. I joked that there should be some fantasy award that if you get it, it's like a lifetime achievement award or something like that, or whatever, that you get to add the RR into your name, basically joking about your old webcomic idea.
Yeah. Well, I mean, originally Boatload of Mummies was actually going to be set on Earth, and the pseudonym I had picked for it was Josh R.R. Smith.
Yes.
Because, just like the RR can make any name regal.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah.
So I don't play video games. I used to make them, but I have a really hard time getting into them, and I don't know why. The best way I want to, because I love experiencing the worlds, but then I get bored, or my kids come to me and say, "No, let's go pet horses and tame horses." and so then they don't
You've
want
been petting and taming horses?
in Link, the
Okay.
Breath of the Wild.
Okay.
That's what I meant in game, right?
Game, right.
They're like, Blood Moon, no, go away.
Mm-hmm.
They don't like the Blood Moon. They don't like me fighting things. So if my kids are watching, and I only play games as a kind of a social thing, so yeah.
Kara, you're more of a gamer than Isaac is, aren't you?
Not as much when I'm in school,
That's right.
but I do play when I can.
The best
Yeah.
way for me to experience a video game is to sit and watch somebody else do it and chat with them when they're not engrossed with it.
We did play Diablo 3 for a little
Yeah,
while.
okay,
That was
you're right.
so fun.
We did play Diablo 3 a lot. That was fun. It was a social thing, and I loved it. I loved the atmosphere of that. I loved the Castlevania games, and then they did one of the guys who creates Castlevania games created one for the Switch that's basically a Castlevania knockoff. It's like it's not a vampire hunter, it's like a werewolf hunter or something like that. But it's basically Castlevania, and I can't remember the name of it, but it's beautiful and I love it, and then it gets hard and I stop. If they were all easy, I would finish the games because I want to experience it. I go through the maps trying to look at all of the rooms on the maps because I want to see what they look like.
I've got a great game for you. It's called Returnal.
Returnal.
I'm joking.
Oh, okay.
It's famously hard. And you have to have a PS5.
I thought you were going to say a PhD.
Mm-hmm.
You have
So-
to have a PhD to play this game.
So I will be playing Elden Ring. I will only be grumping a little bit. And I will most likely be loving it.
So
I've loved all their previous games.
is it set in George's world, or
No,
is he just doing
did
the lore?
world building.
Okay.
Yeah, he came up with the lore.
So it's a new fantasy world. That
He's
sounds
actually
really
a really
cool.
good match for the way that they like to do video games. Of someone, not just because he's George R. R. Martin, but because his storytelling and fantasy, his style of fantasy, is a very good match to the type of lore that Miyazaki likes to use in the video games. So I think he probably did a really good job, would be my guess.
Is it with Miyazaki?
The Miyazaki who directs these games, not Hokkaido.
Oh, it's a different Miyazaki.
It's a different Miyazaki.
I'm like, I was
That's
just having
blow
this.
Isaac's brain.
Yeah, I was having this really incongruous
No.
sort of.
That Miyazaki's
Matchup?
company made games with the Final Fantasy people.
Those were the Ni no Kuni.
Ni no Kuni, but I
Yeah.
don't know if Miyazaki himself had anything to do with those. That Miyazaki.
Yeah, Ni no Kuni is like playing. I sat and watched Kara play that one. It's like just walking around a Miyazaki world. It's really cool.
So looks like we are out of time. Last, little promo for White Sand. Omnibus is pre-order right now. And I'm sure Adam has provided helpful links for you to go and get that. Not the type of links that tame horses, but the type of links that take you to pre-order pages. And so thank you guys for hanging out, as always, with us. And thank you, Isaac,
Yeah,
for
you're welcome.
stopping by. We're going to go eat dinner now.
Woo!